Now, stay tuned to Vinyl Community Podcasts.
Welcome back, buddies. We got a fun one. I'm already going to call it now. We got a fun one coming up here on Vinyl Community Podcast. Concert Buddy joining you. Our guest today is a channel that I only really in the last 4 or 5 months have been digging into. YouTube just kind of puts these things out there, and through luck, happenstance, and everything in between, I found this is Monica, and her channel is Monie Muse.
Yeah, Monie Muse.
Well, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. No, and like I said, this is no hyperbole. Like, I really enjoyed it. You have really good work on social media, so you kind of tie that in. High production value, which I really need to aspire to. So we'll kind of get into all that. But to kick it off, tell me, like, why YouTube? Why share your collecting journey? Because it looked like you started maybe 5 years ago, and then there was some distance between content. So maybe walk us through that.
Yeah. So I quit my job in 2018 when I had my first child, and I wanted to go all in. Like, I'm going to be a mom. I'm all in. But I was left bored. There was just so many downtimes. And I was a video editor in charge of a whole video department at a mega church. So I had a ton, like, my life was so busy before then. That's why I'm like, I just have to be a mom because I can't do both. And it came at a halt, and I'm like, well, I'm going to do YouTube then. And I started making YouTube videos about random things. Like, I was fishing. I'm like, I don't know what to do it on. So I was doing it on like creativity, or I was doing it on mom life, which I'm glad it didn't take off because it would have been too much. It's too much into the private life with mom life. And I think one time I did a CD episode, but I didn't share it. And I'm like, whoa, that was fun. Like, that did not feel like work. And then I finally did a record episode, and then someone commented and said, do more like this. And I was all out of ideas at that time. I think, I was all out of ideas, and I did it. And then I got 700 views on my first like vinyl one. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. And then from there, I just started getting connected with different vinyl collectors. And it was really cool because I was making new friends. It was like, I'm in isolation, raising a baby, and now I can make new friends. And it was like the type of personalities that collect records are usually creative, or they're into music, or they're into art. And it was like, I've been looking for you guys forever. Like, where have you been? And then, like, as I'm getting connected with a lot of you guys, like on Instagram and stuff, I'm like, you guys feel like my cousins, or you feel like old best friends. And it's really neat. Like, just being older and having friends. It's like, oh wow, thank you guys.
It's funny you said that, because and not to give any rope to some other podcasts, but I'd heard that once on a podcast, and it's true. The older you get, it is harder to make new friends, right? And sadly, people grow apart, you move, all that stuff. So you kind of lose some of the friends along the way.
And the cool thing is that, like, no one has expectations of your friendship. It's like, you leave a comment, that's you're a great friend. It's very low maintenance. You send a meme and you're good to go. You don't have to put much. And when you're an adult, you're busy. You have your family life, you have work, whatever. And the record collecting people and CD collecting people now are great.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't call out a mutual friend that we have, and that's Steve Carlson.
Oh, yeah.
Friend of the program, who great guy. And as I was kind of like learning more about your channel, once I found your channel, I kind of did some deep dives. I'm like, oh, Steve. It's my guy.
No, he was my first subscriber, and like, not my first subscriber, but like my first vinyl community person. And he found me, and he gave me a shout out. And then from there, I got like 100 of his people. And so it's funny because I'll see, people that comment on my videos like all the time on his. I'm like, oh, cool. So he kind of like invited me in. He invited me to the table, and he's shared so much great music with me. And he has an eclectic taste. So sometimes I'm like, oh, that's a little out there. But then sometimes I'm like, oh, this was gold.
Yeah, we just so he has a podcast with his friend Jim Gleason.
Oh, yeah.
two guys talking about records. So I think it was maybe about a month ago we collaborated, and I'd been looking to do something with Steve for a long time because Steve, again, the YouTube thing and how it presents people. I didn't, when he had his flood a couple years ago and lost his collection, that's how I got introduced to him. Sadly, I heard a lot of people in the community, because I wasn't making videos and I was a creeper. I was behind the scenes just watching. And so many people were talking about this guy, Steve Carlson, and if you want to send him records. And anyway, very blessed that through that, got to know Steve, sent him some records. We got a correspondence. Nice. He did the same thing that you're talking about for my channel when I started 2 years ago, that, he gave me a shout out. And like you said, here they came, just to check it out.
It really helps. It's just a simple shout out. And I appreciated it a lot because it helped the momentum and it helped encourage it. Like if I get comments, I get encouraged to keep on making more. Like, okay, someone's watching. Because at first, like as I'm publishing on YouTube, like people in my real life aren't really into my record life, and they're like, what are you doing? And then you got to act like an influencer on, Instagram. They're like, okay. But everyone has been supportive of like, okay, go with this. Like, are you okay?
Yeah, it's funny. At family functions, they'll come up and be like, been watching your podcast. And then they are my channel or whatever. And then we talk about a little bit of surface level, and then it's a whole different conversation because again, the collecting, like you said, the tribe, the record collector, it's a certain type of focus. It's a certain type anyway, and we'll kind of get into that. But
and the cool thing about it is like my friends that had children when they were young, they're like 18, 19. They're children. And I'm like, okay, I just started. And you have, like you were telling me, you have an 8-year-old. But they'll text me. The mom will text me and say, hey, my kid wants to get into records. What do you recommend? Awesome. What do you, where do I start? And, some of the moms are very protective. They don't want like, I don't know, heavy metal. They want very nice, safe fun. I'm like, okay, start with Beach Boys. Start with, start with Elvis, these like classic people. Cause, they want to get introduced. And of course you could go to Target and get like Taylor Swift, but I'm like, if you want to really get into records, you got to go old first.
1,000,000% agree.
Yeah.
One question I had, and I've asked this of some of my guests before, is, and I'm saying this because I'm more the profile, is the older white dude who makes the videos in the vinyl community, right? So as somebody who's not the older white dude, how do you find, and I saw you did an Instagram post when we were filming this, I think today, matter of fact, talking about female viewers, right? So how do you find being in the community, making content, making relationships, connections, all that stuff? Being female, like how is that different, and how do you feel, like you said, bringing new females and younger girls to the
So I've always been a tomboy. I grew up in the 90s. I was watching Ninja Turtles. I wasn't playing video games, but I would watch my cousins play video games and stuff. So I am the youngest of 2 older girls, and my sisters, they were teenagers. And so I would hang out with my cousins, and my cousins, they had all these different interests. And so I was interested in that too. So in college, I was the only girl. I was a video editor. So I'm very much used to being the only girl in like a male dominant world. And so I've always realized like, I don't need to prove myself to anybody. I just got to be myself. And if I'm naturally interested in this, like, the guy is very nice, very respectful, and I don't have to be self-conscious about, I'm a girl, I don't belong here. Like, I've been into photography, I've been into video editing and After Effects, and like, I was in charge of a tech team, and so my husband's also a tech person, and so he works in TV and stuff. So when I came into records, I was a little insecure because I didn't have a lot. I didn't have a lot of records. I probably had about like 20. And my friend, who's a big vinyl person, is like, don't worry about not having the biggest collection. It's okay. Just bring your channel along with you as you're discovering these people. And I said, okay. So he gave me confidence of like, yeah, I love music. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And the cool thing about it is like being on YouTube and growing in this hobby, my subscribers have helped me because they're the pros, really. My subscribers are the pros, like, and they notice the smallest things. Like I'll have B-roll footage and they'll say, oh, you could get better cables. I'm like, okay, send me the link. Where's the better cables? You could get really good audio cables. Okay, send me the link, So I try not to be sensitive like about it because I'm growing with this and growing with the hobby. And like I was watching your last episode, the vinyl chef Steve, and he was like, people were giving him a hard time when he was like comparing the audio sound. And I wanted to do something like that, but my husband's like, don't do it. You're gonna.
Tough,
And I said, yeah, you're right. I'm not ready to do that. But I appreciate when people do that because, you want to know, how does it sound? So, so being a girl and kind of coming onto the vinyl community, I think because like Steve Carlson was so kind and brought me in, and also Paul, he has a channel. Barracuda.
Baraka P-Dub, yeah.
Baraka P-Dub, yeah. He was so kind, and like just everyone was kind of welcoming. So I had a really positive experience. Everyone kind of said, come to the table, come hang out with us. And I'm like, okay, and just people who comment, they're very encouraging. And so I was very encouraged. So I was excited when I found a few other female vinyl community collectors, and they've come and gone. Everyone has come and gone over the past 5 years and stuff. But like I made friends with them, and like it's funny because I'll make friends with the wife of the husband that collects, on Instagram, and I'm like, your wife is so cool. Like she loves music too, and I get to see their family grow. So we become, on a deeper level connected. So not just with music, but we also have the same interests. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been really nice. I'm so glad. I have, I think it was like 34 or something % female viewers. And I've encouraged my aunts. My aunts love Elvis. I'm like, watch my channel. And so they'll comment sometimes, and different friends. And I think just allowing girls to feel accepted and okay. It's okay if you don't know everything.
Included, right? Yeah.
Yeah, included. Like, come into the conversation. And they love music. I don't know why there's not a lot of female vinyl collectors, though. I don't know why. I was going to research that. Like, why are girls? I don't know. Like, is it? I don't know. There's just who knows why. I don't know why.
Right.
It could be the technical side can prevent them. Like, oh, that's too much. Like my husband helped me put the stereo together. It's a Frankenstein of a stereo. So I got like a piece of it from the Goodwill, a piece of it I bought. One of my commenters said like, hey, the speakers are on sale at Best Buy. And someone else commented and said, okay, if you can't find a CD player, use a DVD player. So I had help from the community really to put it together. And so that could be preventing some girls, the technical side, but I've always been challenged by a technical problem. So I'm like, okay, I could solve this problem.
No, that's great. Exactly kind of what you said. And I don't want to generalize, but I do know, unfortunately, from what I've experienced, not only doing this the last couple of years myself, but even being creeper behind the scenes guy, is that unfortunately sometimes some of these female-led channels, they don't have such a positive experience. So I think it's great that you've had a great experience. And I think, there's that one troll or there's that one person that kind of gives them a sour.
You got to be tough though, because I have a guy that he comes off as rude, but that's his personality. Because I watched his channel, I'm like, oh, that's just who he is. Like, he's not trying to be mean. That's just who he is. So, like I said, you got to have a thick skin and play with it. If they're going to troll you got to troll a little back.
You're speaking my language right there.
Like one person when I first started said, like, do you smell your records? I'm like, are you trying to be gross or? But then I get it. Yeah, sometimes the records smell.
Talking about our last episode and some people being discouraged along the process and have you find that there's been kickback about what I'll call, and I'm using air quotes here, vinyl snobs, maybe you said something or you had a date wrong or whatever.
You gotta go with it. Like one guy said, why did you put this poster on wrong? Because it's supposed to be a portrait. I'm like, because it fits better in my room like this. So you just got to be tough with them. But the snobs are nice. They're experts and they're passionate, and you just go with that and you ask them more questions about their passion. And I also made it a rule in myself, like I'm not gonna say like, hey, your taste sucks, or
of course not. Yeah.
None of that. Like, I get people who have totally different tastes than me, and I'm like, I'm glad you watch my channel because I know we're different tastes.
For sure, for sure. Well, let's talk about the collecting piece and I don't want to like label you as just a record collector because you do collect CDs. So
Yes.
that's why I kind of call this collecting music
Okay, good.
across formats, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of your
Yeah.
videos that have been catching up on are CDs, right?
Yes.
Is there any other format? I mean, cassettes? Do you dabble in cassettes at all?
No,
No. Okay.
no. I would want the cassette just for the little packaging because I thought that's kind of cool.
Okay.
And I even asked my mom, I'm like, do you have that one tape from 20 years ago? She's like, no. No, I don't got it. I asked my dad, I text him like, hey, remember that one tape you used to listen to? Do you still got it? He's like, I have no idea.
Oh yeah, and then if you try to find it back home in the box in the attic, and it's
Yeah.
no man, good luck.
Yeah. So cassettes are cool. Those people who do collect it, like that's a very niche because it's hard to find the tapes
Yes.
and they're expensive. It's like, what? But I mainly do CDs and records, and I love CDs. I don't have a lot. So I recently got back into CDs because records were getting high. So I'm
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
I'll go back into my CD collection and started. There was a phase in the Goodwill thrift store days that I used to do when I first started, where there was a lot of CDs. And
Yes.
it was so great. I would find like collections. Like I found a collection of The Cure, and I'm like, oh, this is gold. And then I found some Morning Jacket. I'm like, oh my gosh! And so I found a lot of good stuff in 2020 and then 21. But then now it's like gone.
Yeah. It's interesting because even like record class, how I got into it over 10 years ago. Goodwills, antiques,
Oh yeah.
all that stuff. But yeah, the hobby and this music consumption as a whole has changed. Exactly, you're talking about even CDs.
Yeah.
3,
And
5
I'm
years ago.
suspicious that Goodwill is posting them on their eBay page.
The shop Goodwill is a
Yes.
detriment to music collectors everywhere.
What?
I'm not a fan. Not a fan.
And then they sky high it. I'm like,
Yes.
oh, it
Not
breaks my
cool.
heart.
Not cool.
Because I loved discovering music in the Goodwills. And I like think of, someone who's 18, 19, they don't have a lot of money and they see
Exactly.
something for $2 and then they're like, oh, who's Nirvana? That's how you get introduced to this great music is
Right.
when it comes to you and you find it.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say about, and I noticed this from some of your recent videos about thinning the herd, so to speak,
Oh,
about
yes.
quality over quantity.
Yes.
And I think there's different stages of collecting
There
CDs,
is, yeah.
vinyl, whatever. And that, first is like, oh, I can get a whole bunch cheap.
Yeah.
Get in my
Exactly.
car.
I'm like,
Take it all, right? Like buffet, like fat kid and cake.
yes.
And then there comes a point when space becomes a
Yes.
consideration, when
Yeah.
the prices, like we're talking about,
Yes.
kind of go up. So you recently have
Yeah.
been being more intentional. Kind of
Yes.
tell us about that and talk about how you're going about culling it down over
Yeah.
quality over quantity, let's say.
Yeah. So when I became a mom, I had a baby with a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, I can't do this, So I started to go more towards minimalism. And then as I was doing that, I'm like, I need to buy things. It was weird. Like, the whole minimalism is like, you don't buy anything. I'm like, sorry, I need to buy things. And so I started buying music. And so though I try to be minimalist in other
Mhm.
areas like the living room, my music, I try to also be very intentional with it and not having too much stuff where it's overwhelming. So like I've been gifted, big boxes of records from like a family friend. They had some really good stuff in there. They had like Santana, and this was like original pressing. They had some like Woodstock, but then they also had stuff that I wasn't really into, like Donna Summers. Donna Summers is good. It's cool. I'm like, I'll give this away. So I gave it to someone who I know who likes it. And so then I started doing that. Like, as I'm listening to it, I already know I'm not going to listen to this. I'm going to give it to someone who wants it. And then like, my past few episodes, I had a big pile, and I'm like, well, let me try to go to the record store guy. And he didn't give me much.
Yeah.
And so I ended up selling individually, and that was fun. Selling records was fun. And I'm like, okay, I could do this. So I have like, as I bring in stuff, CDs too, I try to say, well, let me put it on eBay and see what happens. And you know what? Like sometimes no one buys it, but like I got an alert for like something I posted like a few months ago and it sold. I'm like, oh, okay. It was like $5. Okay, fine. Okay. And that like selling makes you happy. It's like, oh, okay. something's happening here. So,
For sure.
I just try to be intentional, try not to have too much clutter. I've kind of went through my CDs, and I still have like maybe a good 20 I haven't heard, because I was given some CDs, and I'm like, okay, I haven't. Like yesterday, I just listened to Joe Crocker. I just got that CD. I'm like, okay, this is good. I'll keep it. So I kind of do that. As I listen to it, I'm like, oh, this isn't good. I'm never going to listen to this, and go from there. Just and it's funny because I'll put something on the record player, and I'm like, oh, I love this. I'm like, yeah, of course I love it. I chose it. This is my collection. I'm like, oh, this is so good.
Right. Now, did I hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think, because you were a guest on another podcast, not too recently, streaming. You're just not into streaming. Is that true?
Oh, streaming. I hate it. Okay. So I have a theory that, because I was asking my friend, Steve, he does a CD YouTube channel, and me and him love rock music. And so I was sharing Phoenix. I just got the Phoenix CD, and he's like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, Steve, where's all the rock bands? Where are they at? He's like, I don't know. The kids just don't like them. And I'm like, I blame Spotify, because when I had Spotify for like a month, it was feeding me the most generic music. I'm like, what is this? Or like the top 20. I'm like, okay, I'm over this sound. Like it was so hard to discover music. And some people have made it work for them. They can discover music on Spotify. I can't. It gives me, and it's frustrating because I love full albums. I want to listen to beginning to end. I want to look at inside it. I want to look what's going on inside. I want to read the lyrics. So I'm old school like that. And so Spotify wasn't for me. I'm like, no. And then because they charge money to stream it, or you got, oh my gosh, I'm like, you're making me think of everything wrong I hate about it. Okay, I do the free version.
The talk why I hate Spotify. No, I'm just kidding.
The free version does ads. You're grooving to the song, and then an ad. You're like, no, this is no way to listen to music. So Gen Z, please do not listen to music like that. Do not let the ads come and interrupt your flow. So if you do pay, I don't know what the pay version's like. But for a while, I did do iTunes streaming.
Okay.
But I would purchase full albums. And then I'm like, okay, when the streaming came on, then I'm like, I'm listening to the same album and I'm paying $10 to stream. So I'm renting this album of The Weeknd. I'm renting it. And then when I quit my job, then I'm like, I'm going to try to save money and buy a CD. I didn't save money at all. But I fell in love with my CDs again. I fell in love with music again. And when I quit, like, I don't know if you ever quit a job, but you're like, who am I? What am I? Like, your identity is crushed. Or, if you get laid off or whatever, it's like your friend group are gone, your schedule's gone. And so my whole life was like, I don't know who I am. And then I started listening to my old music, like Third Eye Blind and some of my old rock music. And I'm like, I'm here. I exist.
It centered you.
Yes. Yeah, it really did. And so vinyl also did that to me. And I'm so grateful for the gift of music.
It's funny you brought up the iTunes thing, because I think, and maybe somebody will correct me on this one, but I had read years ago that like Bruce Willis, the actor, he'd actually reached out to Apple because he was putting a will together. And he's like, I have hundreds of thousands of movies I've purchased. Mm-hmm. What happens to those when I leave the celestial plane? And it became a big thing because exactly what you're talking about. It's just prolonged renting. It's not, there's no ownership anymore. And I find that very, very strange.
And they upped the price. So when I went on, it was $9. And I think now it's, I don't know, 10, 11, I don't know. But I'm like, I'm not going to do this where you're going to up the price on my music. You're not going to have my music hostage. And when I walk into my room, I'm like, oh, I feel like listening to this or that, and I know exactly what I want. With Spotify, I'm like, skip. So I don't like Spotify.
Now, because the room you're in now, a lot of your videos are there. Is it a dedicated listening room? Is it safe to say?
Well, I made it, and it's actually my feature. Okay, my son's one. This is his room.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of took over. It's my office. It's my record listening room. I have all my music right here, my CDs. And in the morning, when the kids are asleep, I come in here and like I start my day. I have my cup of coffee, and I just get inspired and start thinking about, oh, what can I do on YouTube? What can I do on Instagram? Oh, I'm going to film something really quick. And it's my creative room, and I really needed that space, especially like being a mom of 3. I'm like,
Mhm.
I close the door, or if they're around, they'll walk around, and then they hear the music, the kids, and then they want to come and play,
Of
which is fine
course.
because, yeah,
Hey, let me ask you a quick question because you brought up minimalism because I've kind of gone down that path too.
yeah, okay.
Who do you follow like the minimalists like Josh and
Yes.
Nicodemus?
I've been
Okay.
following the minimalist from like 2013 or something. Whenever
Oh
they started, they were
wow,
brand like I've heard every episode when they first started
that's
before,
awesome.
start charging especially, special episodes and stuff. So what minimalism did help me on was get out of debt. So I had my school debt. I had my car debt. I had like a little Mini Cooper. So I had altogether $60,000 in debt. And I had just started dating my husband. And so I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to be responsible now. I think I'm going to, like we're going to get married one day. I need to handle this debt because
Sure, sure.
I knew I wanted to be a stay at home mom. I love the 60s, the 70s. If I could have that life, I would. Like,
Okay.
I people don't like that, that old fashioned woman. I'm like, I do. I love being a mom and
Sure.
having a family and being able to be all there for my kids. So the minimalism really helped me be more intentional with my purchases, and it helped me get out of debt. And I got out of debt by the time we got married. I think I had $3,000 left. I had to
There you
sell the
go.
car. I had to sell a few things.
Some hard choices, but yeah,
Yeah,
it provides like they talk about. It
yeah,
provides the
yeah,
life. Don't be attached to your things.
yeah.
And I
I
always
stopped traveling.
yeah
All that stuff.
when I tell people like I've read the books and
Yeah.
I watched I think the Netflix
Hmm.
documentary is what kind of turned me into it. And I watched the first one and I'm like, man,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then life got in the way, and then they made the
Yeah.
second one.
Yeah.
So I've read the books, I do the podcast,
Yeah.
Patreon, all that stuff. But
Yeah.
when I tell people I'm a record collector, that's the only caveat.
Right.
I have
That
to
is me too. I made that rule.
'cause I had it because and
Yeah.
Josh and Ryan and those guys say that
Yeah.
if it brings you joy and
Yeah.
it
Like
has
they love
value.
sweaters. I think the Ryan guy, he said, I have all the sweaters. I have all the jackets. And I'm like, okay.
Yes.
But you know what? When I first did minimalism, I did get rid of my CDs. I'm like, I don't need this. But then I'm like, no, I want that. So I took it out and I brought it back in.
Awesome. So another great segue.
Yeah.
Not just about the CDs, but bringing something back, right? Why choose
Mm-hmm.
vinyl, right? Because obviously we're in for lack of a better word, a digital world,
Mm-hmm.
and people like we were talking about Spotify
Yeah.
earlier, like people like the convenience piece. The
Yeah.
vinyl is very like we talking about intentional listening. It has to
Yeah.
be very deliberate. You have to obviously physically touch, put it, flip
Yeah.
it, etc. So why choose vinyl in our digital era now?
Yes. Well, when I first got into records, it was magical. It was like, oh my gosh, analog sound amazing. And the experience was old fashioned. And so I'm like, okay, like this is connecting me to history. So I started collecting old 60s stuff, and like I was getting reconnected to like my parents' generation and
Hmm,
their story. And I would imagine, their life in the 60s and the 70s growing up.
sure.
And so that was very fascinating to me. And so I think over the years, the record helped me in a more therapeutic way. So as it's playing, and I love art and I love graphic design and all that stuff. So
Mhm.
the CD sleeve as well, because I know we're on vinyl, but real quick, the CD sleeve encouraged me to be more into graphic design when I was
Oh,
trying to figure out like, what should I do for a living? After high school, I'm like, I would love to make a CD sleeve, So
okay.
that was like, that inspired me. But then
Awesome.
also, okay, so back to the vinyl, it gets me away from the phone. I'm a person where I love connecting with people. I love making things on the phone. For a while, I didn't have a smartphone because I knew like I'm going to get addicted to it. I already know it. And I don't want to Instagram. I'm going to get addicted to it. And I didn't have a phone for like a year. And finally my friends were like, get a phone. I
Join us.
can't.
We float down
And then,
here. Yeah.
like I said, my work was overwhelming. So they couldn't contact me.
I see.
But then I got a phone. I got a smartphone. But the record has always been with me when it comes to like helping me not get stressed out or helping me relax, helping me breathe, helping me be inspired, thinking and journaling and stuff. It helps center me, so,
Yeah.
and it just looks nice, the big, I have some right here, it's just awesome. Like
Yeah.
to hold in your hands and like I said, it's history because I have some old originals and
Mhm.
I don't care if there's wear and tear on it because it's like, okay, someone else loved this
The
album.
patina. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. What when you see some of the other folks on YouTube and other collectors and that sort of thing, do you derive inspiration and inside of that, it's like a follow-up question to, I guess, earlier thing I was thinking about. Has there ever been a better time, in your opinion, to be a record collector? Because you've
It's the
got
worst
record
time.
store day and
No,
availability.
it's the worst.
Really the worst. Tell me why.
It really is because the prices have gone up. It would have locked me out. I would have felt overwhelmed, like, I can't afford that, you know? Like, I got this for like $3, you know? And now you would pay $10 and shipping and all this stuff. So it's the worst time, but it's worth it because I think we need it. Like, we need to get away from our phones. We need to get away from the drama of everything. Everything is a drama thing, you know? And just kind of like get away from all that and listen to your records. And so I'll say that sometimes, like, you know, the world's on fire, but I'm listening to my records.
World is burning, but you're sitting in your chair just listening and zoning out. No.
But the thing that it does is it helps you like think about what's important, and then you can come back to those issues and you know what you think, what you feel, because you've had time away to process it and to think about it. So it's like you could be confident in what you believe. Like, I believe it's good for me. I'm a mom. I'm going to focus on my kids. And then second is like, I can do YouTube if I want, if I have time, you know, and if I miss a week, it's not a big deal, you know? So it's great to, you know, kind of do your own thing. Don't follow the whole, like, try to do this or try to do that. Like
and it's funny you say that because the whole FOMO thing is really, it's not just the vinyl community and record collecting, but video game, whatever your little hobby seems to be, FOMO is always underneath the surface, and that can kind of, I wouldn't say corrupt, but it can kind of confuse people's focus from the music and why they do it, as opposed to, I've got to get all the Taylor Swift.
Exactly. I think the boundaries also help your collection, where you're going to be for sure you want this one instead of wasting all your money on this. You know, you do your research, you look at your music and you see, oh, I really want this one, or I really want that one. So the boundaries of my space has helped me cultivate my collection to be exactly what I want it to be. So in my sections, I have like my modern rock, and then I have like old school, and, you know, everything I listen to, I'm enjoying. But like, if my husband comes into the room, he's like, I don't like this. I'm like, it's not your collection. But then I see him walking over, he's looking at my CDs, and I'm like, see, you like my music. Sometimes we match up on our music taste and sometimes we don't.
Sure.
Yeah.
How do you use or how important is like online shopping? Like, I know you've talked about doing things on eBay before.
Yes,
like Discogs, is that part of your like collection?
I don't really do Discogs because it adds up. You put your item in the cart, then you got to pay for shipping, and it's like there's not a deal. It's very hard to find a deal there. But once in a while, if I am looking for something specific, I'll go on there. I mainly find my deals in eBay, and if I find a good shop on eBay, like I just recently bought The Who, The Beach Boys, and ELO for like each record was like $3, and he bundled them where I only paid shipping for $5, and so like my niche of record collecting is being cheap. If you want to know the hacks, like I'm trying to develop the hacks, and I'm trying to learn from you guys. What are the hacks? I don't have a lot of money. I do photography on the side, and that's kind of like my side hustle money. But I don't spend the main fund for the family.
Right. Yeah.
Only to keep, like I said, the boundaries help. So if I had unlimited boundaries and I'm like, okay, my husband's working, I'm going to buy whatever I want, then I'm going to end up with stuff where I'm like, I didn't really want this. I didn't really want that. But when, like for me, I have to work for my record money, then it's more pride, and I take more ownership with my music, and then it pushes me to also do my photography. Like, okay, go out there and do some jobs, and go out there and make some money. And also, as a photographer and a creative person, I don't like to charge money. I don't want to, it's awkward for me. But because of my motivation for the records,
I see. Yeah, okay.
And my YouTube channel, then I'm motivated. I'm worth this much.
Well, talking about side hustle, I mean, in your recent videos, like we talked on earlier, you did sell some of your
I did.
extras, right? So, do you find that was it the first time you'd really kind of consciously be like, okay, I'm gonna
Yes.
sell and see what I can get? How'd that go?
Yes, and I didn't know because I'd been given a big box of stuff. I didn't know what it was and if it was good. It was a lot of the like in culture. There's the A, the top A ones, B and C. These were the C collection. Like they're okay, but not like really good. Like,
sure. Maybe one or a handful of them.
Like
are like
someone out there loves this, but not me. And so I was like, that was my audience. Like, okay, I'm going to sell it to the one person who loves it and is looking for that. And yeah, so I made, I think altogether $150, which is better than the record seller guy was going to give me, I think $10 or something. I don't even know. It was bad. It was so bad. So
sadness.
I know.
Well, all right, we're at the lightning round
portion
of the presentation. So I'm gonna hit you with some quick ones, and then we'll get you back on to the little ones behind the door.
Yes.
Tell me about your favorite or most memorable find out in the wild.
Let's see. That's a hard one. Let me see. Okay, I have some records here. Okay, I just got to look at it, and then I'm sparked. Okay, I really liked. I think Steve Carlson told me about him. Tim Buckley.
Oh, okay.
And I really wanted his stuff, and I looked up his music on YouTube, and it was really like folky, but it wasn't popular like a Bob Dylan, but he kind of sounded like a little bit about Bob Dylan.
Sure, singer-songwriter, sure.
Yeah, and so I found him, and this was 10. This was 10 as well. And so, yeah, when I came across him, I'm like, I know who Tim Buckley is. I want it. And like, I love these records. They're so cool. So that was a good find.
Okay, nice. Did here's one that I've asked you. Oh, you got another one? No, please.
Well, I don't know. I'm just
show me if you got to go on the flex.
Okay, first record ever, Simon and Garfunkel. I got this at the Goodwill for $1.
In your first video, all-time video. I'm just saying, so people want to go back and watch. This was
yes. Yeah, so it was the first one I bought, and I went, I was hanging out with a guy, and he had a record player because I didn't have a record player, and I said, let's play it. And so I listened to Bridge Over Trembling Water, and I was like, I'm in love with records. It was amazing. It really was. And so this one got me. This one hooked me in.
Did it. All right, next one. Should concerts be moved to matinees? Jamie Lee Curtis, like a couple months ago, was talking about this because, like, the way they do plays, you have a matinee and an evening.
Oh, cool! That's a great idea.
Yes, especially as we're getting older. I'm not going to.
Yes, I don't like. 9 o'clock, the main band goes up. I'm like, tough. This is going to be a late night.
Especially during the weekdays. I'm just like, yes. I never thought I'd beat my parents. But I'm kind of my parents. So like weekends, you got a little bit of time to recover, a little flexibility. But do you think that bands and artists
would be awesome? That?
Okay.
Yeah, and they should do like an afternoon set and then an evening set. That would be
even
really
better.
Cool.
Even better.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
All right, hard one. And this one may be polarizing, so I'm just going to throw it out there. Rolling Stones or the Beatles? You only get to pick one.
I don't know much about Rolling Stones. I haven't gotten there yet. So it's going to be the Beatles. But if you do Beatles and Beach Boys, Beach Boys. I love Beach Boys. I love Brian Wilson. I love his complexity of who he is and their story. And
do you are you familiar with Dennis Wilson's solo record, Pacific Ocean Blue? Yeah, that's a good one too. Very good.
Okay, I got it back here. It's right there.
Nice.
It's hanging on there.
That's a collector for you. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. Way to go. All right, last one for you. How do you involve your kids or your family in your collecting pursuits? Is it one of those things where you actively try to like engage them with the music, or if you're at a thrift store or something and walk them through it, or is it a lot harder to kind of rope them into the experience?
I think just playing my records and they walk into the room and they have fun with it, and to kind of see where their taste is and where it's lying. Like the baby boy, he loves rock music. I play like Nirvana or Foo Fighters and he's dancing. He loves it already. And I'm like, that's cool. And then the girls love the like mellow. They do love the Taylor Swift. I'm like, okay, you're not ready for that yet. And then if they see records on cartoons or TV, they'll say, Mom, look, records. And they get really happy about it.
That's so fun. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've done it.
Yes.
You did
Thank
it.
you for having me. It's
You
so
did
fun
it.
to talk about
Monica,
references.
so awesome. The channel is
Yeah.
Monie Muse,
Muse.
and I'll have links below in the show notes and all that stuff.
Cool.
But
Thank you.
I cannot recommend this channel enough. Fun,
Thank
positive,
you.
great work on social media, and like you said, like the
Yeah.
quality because of your photography and creative
Yes.
background really
Yeah.
shines through. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Chance.
And that was another trip around the turntable. Thanks for listening to Vinyl Community Podcasts.